is there a truly reality out there that humans could really know? It's an age-old battle between realists and absolutists. God is not great, how religion ruins everything. And yet it's utterly and totally ridiculous. We need to live for something beyond ourselves. You know, for years now, science has clung dogmatically to this kind of metaphysical materialism. The universe and all that it contains must be sufficiently self-explanatory. Everything at every level must have a purely materialistic cause. To look outside of it, to speculate that something could exist outside, is superstition, or even worse, it's religion, the unpardonable thought crime. It's kind of funny, though, how names like Copernicus, Kepler, Newton, and so forth, I mean, they're pretty good scientists, did pretty good science, and they all believed in God. But what did they know? Of course, of everyday research in the lab, science should deal with the immediate material evidence. Scientists can't be evoking the supernatural. However, when confronting the biggest things of all, the question of how the universe began, science's a priori materialistic presuppositions have forced it into the goofiest speculation. Let me give you an example. In his book, Cosmic Jackpot, by physicist and cosmologist Paul Davies, he shows us some of these speculations. Now, Davies himself is not a Christian, it seems, but he seems to remain in awe enough at creation that even if unconvinced about God now, he's certainly not hostile. If anything, Davies at times says things that makes me think he really believes there's something else out there, that we really all aren't products of pure chance. In fact, in this book, Davies deals with what's often called anthropic coincidences. These are these mind-boggling precise balances of universal physical forces that all but scream design. They scream providence. They scream teleology. Things turned out to be a whole lot more complicated than anyone ever imagined. Now, in order to get around this politically incorrect fact that the odds of such a fine-toothed universe like ours, so suited for life, arising by pure chance is impossible, science has now proposed that our universe isn't a universe, but rather a multiverse. See, what happened is after the Big Bang, space supposedly began this process of what they call eternal inflation, in which it keeps growing forever and ever. All of which Davies wrote means that, what we have all been calling all along the universe is, in this theory, just an infinitesimally small part of a single bubble or pocket universe, set amid an infinite assemblage of universes, a multiverse, itself embedded in invading space that exists without end. These other universes, just over the horizon of ours, supposedly solve the anthropic problem. And that's because there are billions of other universes out there, maybe even an infinite number. The fact that ours just happens to have life is no big deal. I mean, create enough universes, and sooner or later, one of them will come out like ours, perfectly balanced for human existence. Well, to start out, to call evidence for these other universes slim would be ludicrously generous. No evidence whatsoever for these other universes exists. It's metaphysical speculation in the guise of science. Even so, the speculation regarding them doesn't stop here. We're now told that while many of these other universes are real, ours is likely a fake, a computer simulation created by a race of super intelligent beings from another one of these other universes. Let me read you a quote here. Davies quotes an Oxford professor. His name is Nick Bostrom, a pundit of the simulation argument. That's what he calls it. He says, quote, "There is a significant probability that you are living in a computer simulation. I mean this literally. if the simulation argument is true, you exist in a virtual reality simulated in a computer built by some advanced civilization. Well, I mean, however much this idea kind of sounds like a cross between, or the Return of the Jedi meets the Matrix, according to Davis, if we accept the idea of a multiverse, then we can't rule out this simulation argument. In fact, he says, the odds of us, our universe, our planet, our senses, our minds, our thought, he said the odds of us being fake are greater than the odds of us even being real. Again, to quote Davis, these universes will spawn a number of fakes, wrote Davis, so that in the total mix of real and fake universes, fake ones will overwhelmingly predominate. Therefore, our universe is, and he says, very, very likely to be a fake. Then he goes on, also the simulation argument also solves the anthropic problem nicely. Remember, how could life be so finely tuned? And in the end, our universe really isn't so suited for life. And that's because there is no life. We all, you, me, all of us, we're just computer simulations, a bunch of zeros and ones, nothing else. Of course, even if one accepts this nonsense pawned off as science, it still doesn't answer the ultimate question. Because who created the universe out of which this advanced simulation arose that programmed its max to simulate us? See the point? And folks wonder why sometimes some people stress a little skepticism about science and scientific theories. And people have chided others for not bowing down, to every decree issued, pronounced ex cathedra in the name of the scientific method. Please, computer simulation. I don't know. But at times, I am amazed. I'm amazed at what people will do to try to get away from one simple idea. One simple idea. And that's the idea that the universe was created by God. If you absolutely and utterly rule out without equivocation the idea of God, then perhaps something that we're all giant computer simulations makes sense. But I don't know. It seems rather silly for us as human beings, tiny little packets of flesh and bone, pretty much limited to our tiny space in the cosmos. We who have access to only a tiny, tiny percentage of the reality that's out there, to be kind of dogmatic about the non-existence of God. So dogmatic that in order to get around it, you come up with something like the computer simulation argument. One could give many reasons for not believing in God, okay? I could accept that, okay? You can argue against it. But to be so adamant about it that you have to devise this kind of silliness, I don't know, but it sounds more here like psychology or philosophy is going on than science itself. Because think of it, only something greater than a creation can make a creation, right? That only seems sensible. That seems sensible. Could a Van Gogh create Van Gogh? Or is it the other way around? You need Van Gogh to create a Van Gogh. Seems pretty straightforward. Seems pretty sensible. Seems to the only thing that could make sense. Seems that only then something greater than the universe, something greater than the universe could create the universe. And who else could that be? What else could that be other than God? And yet that gets people very uptight. Well, we can't believe in God. This is science, and on and on and on. And so they're forced to come up with, first of all, this whole idea of multiple universes. We can't see to the edge of our own universe. So where did we come up with the idea that there are infinite more universes out there, infinite more? That's a common thing among cosmologists now. And yet there's no evidence whatsoever. And even if you bought into the idea that we only got one universe, or there are millions of universes out there, fine. That's fine. Say there are an infinite number of universes out there. How did they get started? Where did they come from? Who created them? Who breathed fire into the equations that made the universes? No, I think all this so-called metaphysical speculation under the guise of science is all just an attempt, whether consciously or subconsciously, to get away from what would seem to me to be the most obvious explanation. And that is, there is a God out there who created this universe and created life on it. It just seems to be the most sensible answer.